Here we are again. We are the RawPetMedics, and we do this every week because we love it. And I'm here with Dr. Brendan Clark and Dr. Connor Brady, and we talk about nutrition, we talk about life, we talk about death, we talk about everything in between. And we are supported by our Patreon members, to whom we are very, very grateful. You can find us on Patreon. You just go to Patreon, put in RawPetMedics, or you can follow the link, which usually goes below when I say these things. But basically, the easiest thing is you go to Patreon and you just give us the cost of a cup of coffee every month to help us to pay Pete, our podcast guy, who puts out all our podcasts on every podcast medium you can possibly think of. Also, a big thank you to our YouTube followers. Please like and subscribe and all that stuff, because it helps the algorithms, whatever they are. Gentlemen, how are you?
Very good. Yeah, very good. Tipping away. I can't think of anything exciting I'm doing. I was just saying at the start of the podcast, not very exciting for you guys, but I dyed my favorite hat, the hat I bought on the guy's farm. You remember in
Will Harris?
Will Harris, that's it.
Yes. The really famous guy.
I think he's famous. I used jet black, and there was nothing else in there. I put in a hoodie as well because it said just use one item. Look, it went grey. How does jet black go grey? I'm just so annoyed.
Because it's a synthetic material and it wouldn't hold the dye as well as cotton, I would suggest.
Probably, yeah. Actually, worked quite well in my hoodie, actually. So maybe my hoodie just sucked all the good stuff out. Anyway, that's been the most exciting thing that's happened to me in the last 7 days.
Dyeing a hoodie is the most exciting thing.
Yeah. What about you, Brent? What's going on,
I have been down to Lewes in East Sussex. We had a conference for the British Association of Homeopathic Veterinary Surgeons.
Oh, good.
Of which I am president for one more year, that final year of my term. So just handing that across. It went really well. There was some great stuff. I was so pleased. I don't know whether they just pick up that I just keep talking about sustainable agriculture and, that we do all of this stuff, because this year they did do a whole raft of people talking about agri-homeopathy. So how you treat the pasture with various remedies to improve, one, the microbiome within the land, two, to change the mineral uptake of the plants and therefore the health of the animals that are eating on it, and helping to effectively restore land that has been damaged by monoculture for so many years.
Wow.
How's the plant bit work? Explain the plant bit, homeopathy on plants. What's that?
Well, it's the same as any system. It's not some mystical thing. You give effectively an instruction to any living cell on what their issue is, their disease, their dis-ease, and you are effectively helping that cell overcome that disease. And you can look at where it's struggling to take certain minerals up, or you can look at where it's, having problems with certain fungus, rust or anything like that. You can look at, and you can literally run those symptoms through a repertory very similarly. Just that she was giving some great instruction on how you look at. So, we talked about that mycelium being almost like the neural network of the wood. So,
Wide Web.
And she said what they actually do is that they flip the plant upside down, and that gives you effectively your anatomy of looking at, understanding the roots and the root hairs and the tips and things that are going on with that is all of the neural network and that side of things. Your stem is your circulation. Your leaves are effectively your lungs and respiration side of things. And so she was just giving us some tricks to how you can repertorize the ailments of your plants using the human repertories.
That's awesome. And then how do you deliver the treatment? In liquid, obviously.
Literally water it on.
Spray it on.
Water out at night. Must be at night, apparently. Ooh. There is some crucial things of pop it into the water and water them at night. makes a big difference for some reason.
Studies must have been done on this.
Whether it's because that's when they're all in respiratory mode rather than photosynthesis mode, I don't know, but that's what they're doing. And so, yeah, she says loads of studies now. They've stopped collating them. There's just so much going on that they are just sort of like. So she travels around the world doing things. Yeah, we were talking about vines and the mealybugs in South Africa. She does stuff like that. She literally goes out and she will look at how she can improve the things. So get this little free one out there for anybody who's working in a vineyard who is spraying the bejesus to try and keep the weeds from between the vines. Okay. Then just treat all of that land with Nux vomica. She said that is the first start point. Nux vomica, probably follow it up with some sulfur and then start looking at what you're left with. But she says half the time it's because you have soaked that land in so much toxic stuff that the plants are struggling with their own immune systems to keep down all of the other stuff that's going on.
So interesting to make it think the way you said it, to flip the plant upside down and think of that as the brain and the neurons and stuff. And that's so interesting to think that we've got similar systems going on, and that's how you would apply your homeopathic knowledge to it. There is loads of studies on this because studying plants is cheap and easy and quick, and they don't give out. So the studies you'd expect
don't give out.
Yeah, probably do.
There's a whole ethics committee on.
Yeah.
Hug a tree.
Yeah, but there's loads of oodles and oodles of studies here. Tomato plants. I mean, everyone's looking for a cheap, quick, effective way to produce these diseases.
Do you know what? So the first studies that she came across and the writings were back in 1860 by a guy who went out to Argentina, and they were struggling with potato blight. Okay. And so he was doing loads of work on treating potato blight out in Argentina.
Oh, cool.
That's
amazing. So cool.
And the whole placebo thing, because a lot of kind of the scientific community will say, oh, it can't work because there's a placebo effect. You give any sentient creature a sugar pill, and they're going to get better. If they're human, then it's obvious how. But if an owner gives a sugar pill to a tablet, so the story goes from our cynical colleagues, then the owner's behavior will be more expectant. The dog may pick up on that and they may get better, which I think is pretty tenuous, but that's what they'd say. But with plants, as far as we know, that is completely out the window. Although I think some of the people who are practicing agro-homeopathy would say your intention when you actually apply these remedies is probably key to it. I would say
there is,
I mean, Goethe was, Goethe back in the day, and he was a contemporary of when was Goethe around? I don't know, 1850 or so, perhaps. He even back at that stage said that the observer influences the experiment, which was only really proven when they came into the physics of kind of quantum theory.
That's right.
Yeah.
The camera on or off.
Yes.
That's insane.
Yes.
And, yes. Tell us. Can you remember how that study went? I can't. I'll butcher it.
I can't. It's the electron. Now Fiona's going to be watching this, and she's going to be, you guys are idiots.
Yeah. I presented.
Come on next year.
When you look at an electron, it will flip from being it's not in its normal state to either being a wave form, or no, maybe photons. I don't know.
A particle or a wave. Particle or a wave. Yeah.
It will differentiate into a particle or a wave when observed, but when it's not looking, it goes back to doing what it does.
the equivalent of, I'm going to butcher this now, but they had the equivalent of some sort of like photon or some sort of paper, like like you would for a camera, and they spat these kind of particles at them through a little crack in the wall. And whatever way they did it, when the camera was on, like a little CCTV camera, it would be like a kind of a haywire splatter of particles, and when the camera wasn't on, it was in thin lines. And they pretend when they look through the camera, I'm butchering this. I actually presented on this bloody study last year in San Diego, and actually at San Diego, I think it's coming up this now in October.
He's getting nervous.
It's so interesting though. Like why would particles behave differently if there was a CCTV camera on them or not? And even if there was no one looking at the camera would simply be on or off. They behave differently, or if someone was looking at the particles or not. That is insane. What is that? How did you know that in the 1800s? How could you know that?
Yeah, well, it's kind of intuition, is it? Intuitive science and what have you, which is very frowned upon these days. I heard of a study, right? And what they did is they had a cat next to a heater, and the heater was on a random on or off switch, right? And what they found was when they left the heater in the room, just for a comparison, when the heater was in the room on its own, it was completely random. Yeah, they could measure it, random. But when the cat was in the room, it was less random, and it was on more than it was off to keep Kitty warm.
No,
I kid you
no
not.
way.
Yeah, and there's another experiment, right? And what they did is they that's right. So they took some chicks from the hen, and they put them into one side of a very nice cage, I hope, and in the other they had a model of a hen with a robot that was making random moves around the pen next to where the chicks were. And when the chicks were not there, you had completely random movement by this little tiny robot machine. But when the chicks were there, who were all crowding out going, "Mummy, mummy, mummy," the random computer was closer to the chicks more often than it was in the rest of the pen. Is a study I've heard of.
To get your daughters, Connor, understanding this and getting really interested in this at a very young age, you can start reading them these books.
Okay. It's Philip Pullman, Northern Lights.
Yeah, because that is all about is there intention in particles. What is consciousness? There's all stuff set to a nice, sweet story. Not so sweet, actually. There's some violent bits, but anyway.
Thanks for warning me.
It's all done. It's all done in a very child-friendly manner.
Oh, I love
that is very interesting. I'll tell you what. We should get a physicist, or maybe somebody who is in the nuclear physics industry, Fiona, to just come on, and we can just talk about physics for a show.
Is that her 10 minutes?
She would enjoy undressing us on that subject. She would
wouldn't she?
Great merriment. Yes.
I think that would be fun. And a lot of people go, well, what's that got to do with nutrition? And directly, nothing, but indirectly, absolutely everything, because everything's made out of particles. I think we could have some very interesting conversations.
Can I just say,
direction.
actually, I should really qualify. This is a very factual program. Yeah. That is a fiction book. The point of it was to make you think outside the box. That's the point.
Oh, so really?
The depth of it is to think about.
Yeah. Listen, if people want to get a taste for these studies, I have a free. There's a thing up on my website, drconnorbrady.com.
Here we go.
No, give me a break here. Actually, no, I haven't got it.
Is it this one?
Matter. Now I've just promoted my website and it's not up there. No, that's another one.
Is it Nick's favourite? Is it Nick's favourite?
He does. That's
DCB.
He's putting rude terminology on my names, on my brand names. But that art study, that piece, that presentation went through some of the cool studies on what animals can perceive and what we can perceive and what you can perceive from a very far away. Even when a camera is on you, you know if somebody's looking through the camera or not, more often than not. That is incredible. University of Nottingham, Edinburgh, they've all looked at that. The CIA, a person can press a button when they feel they're being watched through the camera. And so the researcher, who can be in a different room miles away, will look at them on the TV screen and then look away, and the person will feel it and press the button. That is nuts.
And who's the child looking over your shoulder?
Which child is this now? I don't get it. Child of Prague.
Oh, Sixth Sense.
Oh yes. Yeah, awesome.
Okay, there's a couple of things while we're not on topic, and I think we're allowed to be not on topic today.
Yeah.
A couple of things. Now, number one is I have heard, and if there is anybody with SAS or other special forces connections, please say, but I believe that they train these guys, if they are approaching somebody from behind, they are trained to not think about the guy they're just about to assault, shall we say. Yeah?
Interesting.
They are trained to do that, to think about, I don't know, what they're going to have for tea, or Manchester United, or whoever.
Yeah.
They are trained to do that. I believe that's the case. If that's not the case, then please let me know. Anybody? Yeah, answers on a postcard.
Interesting.
So, and the other thing was, I was lecturing maybe 20 years ago in Portugal, and it was, I will come to the point. And my translator, lovely chap, and we were doing kind of not simultaneous, but like I'll give a sentence, you give a sentence type translation. And this guy, because we would go out and have coffee and then have lunch and what have you, he was a really high in kind of a karate like martial art. Okay. And for their final exam, for their final, super duper black belt, there was only one test, right? And what they had to do is they had to kneel, lower their head, and there would be a guy above them with a whacking great stick. And he, let's say over a half-hour period, was going to bring down this stick on the back of their neck. And they had to perceive that, and they were obviously not looking, etc., etc. And they had to perceive that and get out of the way at the moment the stick was dropped, and not a moment before.
Ooh-wee.
How cool is that?
That's nuts.
How cool is that? And that was it. So it was a 2-second exam, which took half an hour.
Yeah.
But isn't that...
Sounds like a pain in the neck to me.
You're lowering the tone.
Yeah, that is unbelievable. It's very hard to believe until you start looking at this resonance stuff and you see what people can do at a small distance, and what plants, how they react when people are raising their voices. When different types of music are being played to them, they'll turn away. They like classical, they turn away from death metal. But even if you are harming something in a different room, plants will react to that electromagnetically. Like it's crazy. Guys, let's get into tripe, okay? Listen, I have something staggering I want to get out, okay? Because then you guys are going to talk about tripe. And you guys love tripe more than I do. I fell out of love with tripe when someone just told me tripe, it was the cheapest part of the animal, and breeders would grab it and they'd put it in on top of their cornflakes or whatever they fed dogs back in the day, and the dogs bloomed, and they thought, isn't tripe an elixir? And as I always say, meat is an elixir for a meat eater. But anyway, you guys can talk me around, as you are slowly doing on fermented vegetables. But here's the thing I just learned about cows. We all talk about like the fact that cows get almost all their energy from the fats that the bacteria produce, okay?
Fatty acids.
The fatty acids, that's right. So they farm them, this enormous tripe, which could be like 150 litres, isn't that right? It's something utterly 25% of their body weight, something enormous. And so it houses this horrible food substrate grass, very tough, low protein, hardly any fat, pretty poor food source. And they eat volumes of it, and then they ferment it in their guts, and they keep the acids in the heat nice and right, and they swallow. They swallow. Do you know how many liters of saliva a cow produces per day? I've already told you.
About
100 to 150 liters.
Oh, I was going to
100
say
to
20
150
liters.
Yeah, even 100 to 150 liters of spit. That's unbelievable. And they swallow that and they make this soup. And the fiber mat in the middle, and the bacteria love it. First interesting thing I learned was it's not just bacteria in there. Did you know that bacteria can digest cellulose, bits of cellulose, which are like if you were to think of a wall, that'd be the building bricks, the cellulose, okay, the building blocks of the plant skeletons. And some bacteria can digest some of that, not a lot, and they can digest when the plant cell has been broken up by the cow. They get in there, okay, that's great for bacteria. Fungi are 10% of that biomass, okay, and it's only fungi that produce the lignins that can digest the lignin, which is like the cement between the bricks. It's the fungi that break down the So if the reason the cow has to keep bringing up the food bowls and chop it down is because the bacteria can't do it themselves. They do that to facilitate the bacteria. The yeast don't give a damn. They're just rotting away at the lignin, at the cement, and they're the only animals in the world that can do it. I thought that's the first thing. Very interesting. Second thing, we know that they farm bacteria, and the bacteria produce these beautiful short chain fatty acids and whatever butyrates and all these cool things, and we talk about that, and isn't it great? But what we don't talk about is the fact that that's where the cow gets her energy, but it's not where she gets her protein from. So where she gets her protein from, unbelievably, 50 to 70% of the protein that she absorbs is dead bacteria. So I never really thought about that. So that was the first thing I thought, yeah, so the bacteria, they farm them and then they die off and they've had their little life. And then the cow digests them in the small intestines and brings them in. And that's a wonderful protein source. It's animal protein en masse. So you have huge amounts of that protein. But there's a second thing she does, which you guys are probably aware of, but I didn't know. And that is the bacteria ferment the fiber mat in the tripe, in this belly that we're talking about. And they produce gas, and this gas is full of nitrogen, ammonia gas. And so the cow lets out some of that, but also that ammonia passes through the tripe wall. And the cow has learned to recycle that ammonia, pull the nitrogen out of it in the liver, I suppose, turn into urea, which almost every other mammal on the planet would then pass out in urine. But what the cow does is she recycles the urea, and she passes the urea back through the saliva. It's one of the reasons she produces so much saliva, and diffuses the urea through the tripe wall, the only animal on the planet that can do it. So she feeds the bacteria, because bacteria need protein too, and grass is very low protein. So the cow has a dual way of absorbing protein, all the dead animals that she's farming in her guts, and then she can produce more of them. So she's got this on and off toggle when fiber is poor, and when fiber is, or when plant forage is rich, and she can toggle it on and off. So she'll always have lots of amount of protein. Isn't that amazing? She farms them intricately by feeding them urea that we would just wee out on the ground. How interesting is that?
That is amazing.
What a machine.
They are the most underestimated phenomena on the planet.
Yeah.
Because within the regenerative farming community, we're talking monocultures versus raising cattle on pasture. And what the cow does is she is a grass management system, a fertilizer and urine distributor, and a plough, all in the same unit.
And a plough. Yeah, with a big heavy hooves.
And that is just, isn't that spectacular? Also, there are things in saliva, in bovine saliva, which stimulate grass growth.
Yeah, that's
so they
right.
actually have this conversation with the grass, and by having cattle or sheep or any ruminant grazing that grass, there is this ongoing beautiful symbiosis between the.
I thought he was going to hold the lion cub up then and start singing Lion King.
That's what it is. Do you remember? Was it Farmer Angus down in South Africa that told us he took over this devastated land, monocrop agriculture? Just crap has been devastated, and he said the soil is completely depleted. of everything useful, carbon anyway, but also all the other bits and pieces. But he separated out the minerals, and so the cow will go looking for a certain plant, and she go, I wish I had a bit more of those plants, that'd be magnesium. So she goes and she eats the magnesium that Farmer Angus has put out. Then she poos out cow pat that's richer in magnesium, and then the plants that weren't there will grow because there's the magnesium osmosis. So they can turn over the soil quicker than we can just spraying it with all these nitrogen and phosphorus, ridiculous, over and over. She takes what's missing in the soil, poos it back in, and gets that thing going again. Isn't that? And they are. It's so unfair that they picked that animal of all animals to incriminate for this nonsense, when actually it's the one that created the soils in the first place, and really explains a hell of a lot of our grasslands. It's crazy.
And we saw that in Farmer Will. What's his name? Will
Harris.
Will Harris. That's right. He was doing the same. Remember, he had those 6 troughs side by side.
Yeah.
As did Farmer Angus. Yeah, I know, it's fascinating. And I mean, for me, the beauty of it is ridiculously simple. You just have 6 troughs side by side. One was magnesium, the other's carbon, the other one's copper, and the cow chooses herself. Yeah. And I think the reason that modern agriculture doesn't like that system because it's really so simple that you can't market it.
Yeah, that's it.
It's
sells
like
chemicals.
And there is a really important point
chemicals
here as well.
Yeah.
For all of the vegetarians and vegans out there, love you to bits.
Here we go.
But could I just say, you aren't anywhere near as good as a cow to do all of that. You have nowhere in your gut that can function as these 2 boys have just talked about. Okay, so I would just say, leave it to those that can, and then let's us just cope with the fact that that's what we see, because otherwise you may end up with a deficiency. You're going to have to supplement yourself at some point if you're thinking you're just going to eat grass.
Oh, blimey!
You're really not going to be able to do that. Okay,
Brandon, are you getting controversial in your old age?
But it is ridiculous when people say, "Look at a cow. Look how much protein a cow can put on." And it's like, well, do you have any idea how a cow works? It's like it's ridiculous to suggest that we can do the same thing. We can't protein recycle like that cow did, as I just explained. And then it also explains that it's such a delicate system. So she keeps the pH at about 6.2 to 6.6, 6.7. It likes that. The bugs like that at a certain temperature. And then these CAFOs, where 95% of the beef for the US comes from, these concentrated animal feedlots operations, they feed them grain because it's the cheapest calorie on the planet, and it actually puts a marbling on the meat, which is like a toxifying effect on the cow. So what grain does is it will produce fatty acids quite quickly, but what happens is it also produces bacteria that love grain. So that shifts the cow because they are used to bacteria that digest fiber, which is done slowly and just produces fatty acids. When you give them loads of buns and leftover bread and all the other junk from the food industry,
M&Ms, I've heard
M&Ms and whatnot, you will farm bacteria that like sugar and that break down, that produce lots of amylase, and a byproduct of that is lactic acid. And so this is what lowers the pH of the cow's digestive system, and she starts to get acidosis. So, but we don't give a damn because we just got to get her to a year, and then we'll slaughter her, and she'll be as heavy as possible because she's putting down so much fat, which is a lot of it is a protection mechanism. And so they've all their drugs and stuff to use. But a lot of the things like E. coli and salmonella, the reason E. coli grows is because they love acid environments. And so we have engineered the E. coli that normally our guts could handle most E. coli until concentrated animal feedlots came along and evolved these types of E. coli that are acid loving. And now we struggle because they can survive in acid juices. It means when we eat them, they pass through our digestive system, which was a normal part of our protection, and it poisons us.
Yeah.
Did you know, a study, 20 years old, a study shows that if you just switch a cow from carbohydrate grain to hay, you reduce the toxic E. coli load by 1,000-fold. 7 days on hay, and they can't even do that for the cow. It's crazy.
Just for Debbie Williams out there, we're really talking about ruminants here rather than just cows. Okay, so there are a number of other species that can do very similar things.
Yeah,
as mentioned earlier, Debbie.
Yes.
Yes.
So,
keep up with the conversation. Yes. No, we love you, really. What I was going to say was, Connor, you were talking about saliva earlier, and you just mentioned pH. The thing that I remember from college is that they require that a humongous Niagara Falls like volume of saliva because it is alkaline and helps to balance the stomach
That's right.
pH, and they use the saliva to as an acidity regulator,
Bicarb.
which
But
is
that's what the
screwed
urea
in
will
a
do,
CAFO.
because that's alkali.
And
Yeah.
the urea would be a major part of that, for sure. Just explain to me again. So urea in the saliva, how does that fit in with protein?
You got to feed the
Directly,
bacteria want protein too, and grass
they
is a
want
low.
They
they
want the
want the
amine group,
nitrogen to make the
yeah,
protein.
Yeah,
Okay, gotcha.
to
they
add
want
to
their
the
protein
carbon
too.
to
And
make
grass
up
is
the
a poor
mineral.
source of it. So they grab
Right,
as much as they can when
right.
he's farming them. But if you give them more protein, you'll grow more. So the more fibrous your food is, you might need more bacteria to break it down, and so you'll feed them more urea.
Okay.
And in grass rich times, you'll have more urea in our wheat because there's no need to farm any more of them. She controls it on such a delicate feedback loop.
Okay.
I can't imagine she's thinking about it too much now, to be honest. There's not a whole lot going through her head as she's motoring through the field.
She says, this is a complex biochemical pathway that I've got to
How much
perform right now.
stuff-
Will you stop? Maybe that's
Yeah.
what it is. Maybe why on the outside they just don't want you bothering them is
Yeah.
because they're super busy on the inside
They're
working
brilliant.
out the toggling of all of those biochemical
Absolutely.
reactions.
Yeah.
Don't distract me.
Yeah, totally.
I'm
Enormous.
just converting,
Yeah.
whatever to
If you start
urea.
distracting cows, do they explode?
I missed it again. I'm gonna
Yeah.
have to go right back to the beginning. Where are the test tubes? Where's my Bunsen burner?
It's amazing.
It
It's
just
amazing.
shows you that human chemistry is so basic. We have to use test tube Bunsen burners and the like, and cows just do it in the middle
Yeah.
of a field when it's minus 10 degrees. They're just getting on with chemistry. How
it.
amazing is that?
Yeah, it's nuts.
And we just
Yeah.
think they're cows. We just think they're stupid cows. Well, I don't.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
This is why we say thanks
we don't.
to all
But
of them.
many people
every
do.
life.
They go, oh, they're just
Absolutely.
cows.
Yeah.
Massive respect to cows. We need to get RPM badges.
Respect.
I thought you were saying we need to get a cow on.
Yeah.
We should get a cow on.
I know a couple.
Don't follow that conversation any further. Guys, I have found I'm actually gonna stay on topic here. I found a paper, and a 2025 paper, and I'll give you the reference now. It's in the journal Animals, and it's from January 2025. And it's titled "Current Evidence on Raw Meat Diets in Pets: A Natural Symbol, but a Nutritional Controversy." Okay, and they mention raw food a lot because that's what they're talking about, and indirectly they talk about tripe. So that's why I'm going to mention it now. And it's by Lyu et al. Current Evidence on Raw Meat Diets in Pets: A Natural Symbol, but a Nutritional Controversy. And they are still in 2025, and this is 15 years down the line from the papers which began to say, oh, there's no evidence. And there has been a stack of evidence in the last 15 years. I think we can all agree.
Yeah.
And they say, owners report health improvements, but these lack scientific support. Nutritional experts and public health bodies have concerns regarding contamination imbalances and sustainability. This review examines the potential benefits and risks of raw meat diets for cats and dogs. I think that is a very fine example of they are staring down the barrel of overwhelming evidence that there is benefit, but industry is leaning on them to say, oh, there's not enough evidence. What do you think?
Well, there's a couple of things that I also gets me about some of the more recent studies on raw versus high processed that's coming out as well. And there's been, on the back of somebody's PhD in Liverpool, there's been, I think, 3 or 4 papers actually published out of that. And I was a little bit gobsmacked because talking about the risks, they've heightened the risks within this because they've isolated certain resistant bacteria some of which are naturally resistant. And it's not like these are methicillin resistant. It's not like these are superbugs. It's not like they're multi-resistant in that sense. They are just isolating the fact that there are some bugs that are naturally resistant to very first line antibiotics, some of the things that you wouldn't use in the case of a gut upset. There's no Staph aureus or anything like that coming out of these. But when I looked through the data, and you have to go back to the PhD to find out what raw food they are holding up, it literally is whole quail, cold, not gutted, with feather and everything, is one of them. It's pure tripe from a well-known company, just minced tripe. And the third company is tripe and beef mix. And unfortunately, the companies there, I know, do have grain-finished animals, in the production of their tripe. And it's really unfortunate that they will be more prone to having certain bacteria within that. And sure, they found it in the microbiome, in the feces coming out the back end. There's a lot of assumptions then made about the fact that therefore these dogs are going to spread it to the children. And the immune compromised, and it's deadly. There's some assumptions about that, but I was a bit disappointed that that's not all raw is equal, and I think they over-egg. They've pushed a button to try and say how damaging it could possibly be, when actually, when you look at it, they've chosen some really poor evidence of fairly contaminated materials to feed them, above which at no point could I see anywhere that they had been through an ethics committee of that they had seen that in these food materials there were such bugs, and they were happily feeding them to dogs within the experiment. So there's a whole load of ethics that needs to be questions about that. But there we go. That's just my opinion. Sorry, I went a bit off track there, Nick. I was
No.
I think
That's on track. That they're the studies they report, and then they lean heavily on that, and then they do a number of reviews. Let's do the quarterly review of dry v raw, and then people can talk about all the studies supporting dry food and the dangers of raw. But when you look into those studies, half of the studies, if they list 10, half of the studies will be review studies. Freeman for 2014, the review in 2019, the review in 2025, as Nick just highlighted. And it's reviews by, kibble manufacturing, kind of leaning very pro that industry, writing these reviews. And so you get this warm blanket of science, but there's not
systematic
actual
reviews, though, are they?
No,
they're just
not.
reviews,
They're reviews,
and then they get round what they're
Yeah.
actually looking at, and then they start to incorporate in the review opinion pieces.
Exactly that.
That sneaks in there as more science and more references loaded up, because people don't check the references. They just want to see that the references are there. They're too busy. You know what I mean? I've got half an hour. I've been dealing with angry clients and sick dogs all day. I'm not going to sit there and go through your references. I'm going to assume that the Vet Times has done its due diligence before they start telling people that vegan dogs live longer. I'm just going to assume that they have gone through that study for me, and that's the problem. People don't go through the study. People aren't going through the study on ChatGPT. Like they don't realize that, everything, YouTube, Facebook, ChatGPT will please you. It'll give you what you want to watch because it wants you on there as much as possible. So ChatGPT will, if you are pro this or anti that, it'll give you more of that when it interprets a study very quickly. So you have to ask it for both sides. So when somebody said to me recently, the bird flu thing came up again, and I said, like we said back at the time, there's no cats dying of this that we know of. The latest thing that came out of the FDA has massive questions about it. And I said, if you've got any other questions about it, check out that review piece by somebody else. And they just pop up a piece by the AVMA from 3 years ago talking about how dangerous bird flu is for cats. And I said, listen, just put that piece into ChatGPT and say, give me the pros to what this person is saying and the cons. Take a study that someone's written and say, review this study for me, which everybody's doing, and it'll review them. It'll tell you the amazing benefits of that study, particularly if it was for a blockbuster drug, because all the journals get in line and say, yeah, this is fab, this is fab. And so ChatGPT, which doesn't think for itself, takes the general feeling out there from Google and spits it out at you and tells you this is why this is an amazing thing. But if you say, give me the criticisms to Ozempic or whatever the blockbuster statins, what's the criticisms of those studies that people would say? That's what you want. And do it for raw fed studies too, and then you get the truth. So when they start analyzing a certain raw dog food, from Portugal, which was another one, and it was a terrible quality raw dog food. Yeah, don't feed that. That company should be shut down. But I can show you a study where 30 out of 30 dry foods failed for atrocious bacteria readings as well in the Lebanon. And would the UK manufacturers be happy enough me citing that Lebanon study to you all the time? No, and I don't. But, they do. And it's just it's an insidious use of science. So that review, I was aware of that, Nick. They did actually list some of the studies. They glanced over the studies that were produced in Nature, Frontiers and a few others. They just came in on a line. Oh, and they also said it's good for skin, ear and gut conditions. So I was like, whoa, you just glanced over the biggest publications that we had, to get to the negative.
So what these guys are doing is they're reading a whole load of papers and then putting those to one side and vomiting out their opinion.
That's exactly what they do. That's exactly how they get paid.
Which is, opinions like noses. Everybody has one.
Yeah.
That's the clean version. Yeah,
that's the clean version. Yeah, and also people don't understand. There's a lot of credibility. Like they don't understand how veterinary departments work, or how all science departments work, how all college departments work. They have to produce papers. They got to churn them out. You're paid by companies, okay? They use university departments to produce studies for them, and they pay them a lot of money. And so this is the answer we're looking for, guys. Now, it's not obviously that obvious, but if you were, let's say, a very staunch vegan and you had very serious views on feeding cats and dogs vegan food, the pro-veg lobby will find you and they will fund your science, and then you'll churn out oodles of surveys and they'll get published, and before you're 40 you could be a professor. Now, wouldn't that be cock of the walk, walking around being called a professor? And that is extremely powerful to someone, because now your ego and your mortgage and your child's bloody education and everything is now tied up in a message that 10 years ago you could get away with, and today you couldn't present it to any serious science.
I'm sure there is a knight in shining armor out there who is
I don't know who you're talking about.
Doing exactly that for the vegan cat and dog food lobby. Yeah, is there not?
I think they all talk tripe, and everybody falls for it, and it's very hard to turn around, because if the difference between us, I feel, and those I would call them white coats with guns for hire, is that we don't get paid anything. So we just say stuff, and if it's not right, we go, oh shit, I made a mistake. I don't know how many of them. I've done loads of them.
Oh God, what have you said this week?
Oh, I did the 3 weeks ago. So embarrassing. Like the very next day, it's like, sorry. But I can't remember what it was. I'll do it another time. But when you've hitched your wagon to a thing that you've been really pushing hard, it's very hard. It takes a special type of person to turn around and go, I've made a mistake there, and that was wrong. And now I'm going to, close down my laboratory with my 20 people working for me, and all those papers I wrote, they're not so hot. Very hard for someone to do that. Most people can't do it. They don't change their opinion too easy, even though they're scientists. Yeah.
Okay, so guys, just in closing, I'm going to say that I've got 1, 2, 3 or 4 studies that I would like to just very briefly go through in Patreon. But before that, and Bren, can you remember the dates for the Mallorca Raw Feeding Veterinary Society Conference?
17th, 18th of October.
Of October in Mallorca. Guys, just go to the Raw Feeding Veterinary Society, rfvs.info page, and have a look there. And if you fancy a few days in the sun with a whole load of raw feeding fanatics who like to have a very good time as well, then please make an excuse to your husband, wife, lover, whoever it might be, dogs, that you're not going to be around for that weekend, and jump on a plane for then. I'm sure you can get an Airbnb at a more than reasonable price. I think it's going to be a really special.
Oh, the lineup is spectacular.
And Fiona, who was saying, this is Fiona Murray. She has done an incredible job. She has produced a lineup of speakers which I absolutely couldn't believe, including Peter Tobias and
Hulkman,
Rita Hogan,
Rita Hogan, friend of the show,
Billy
and
Hulkman.
both a friend of the show, and
Billy
Billy Hogan,
Hoekman,
friend of the show.
Yeah.
So it's basically a who's who of the raw
Catherine
feeding world,
Ingram. She's
and
coming, friend of the
they're
show.
all going to be there
Ah.
in Mallorca. So even if you're not interested in raw food, it's a great excuse to have 4
There's
days.
one guy
in the
who's
sun.
missing out, and I'm not sure why, but he just
Yeah,
Wow.
we're
Mr.
going to talk
Grumpy.
about him a
Yeah.
lot.
Wow. I
Yeah,
really
behind
want
his
to be.
back.
I really want to be. I can't. I'd be landing and taking off again. That would not be advisable. With the
You'd have major FOMO.
Yeah.
If you did that.
I have
There you
major
go.
FOMO. I cannot believe I'm missing out this year. Also, I adore Mallorca. I love it. I love at the back of that island. I've driven around it many
I think
times.
we should sneakily ship his wife and kids out.
Yeah.
And then send him a picture
I've tried that.
as he lands in Ireland.
Yeah, I've tried
Send
that.
a picture of them waving from Mallorca.
Yeah, I tried that. I said I'd send her. I said I'll send you to Mallorca, not the same place I'm staying, obviously, because you have the kids with her. But didn't work. I got her at a bad time. But yeah. What can
So
you do?
Connor won't be there, but Brendan and I are going to be doing a few bits and pieces, some presentation. We're going to be there to chat and have a laugh with everybody. So it should be a really, really good meeting, I think. So if you can even vaguely come along, please do. It will be fantastic. Right, guys, let's jump over onto Patreon and just have a look at a few papers so that we vaguely look like scientists.
Oh, yeah. And
good.
what we might look for in where would a good tripe come from, I think, is the other thing. Let's give people a little bit of a...
Yeah, actually, before we jump over, and just here,
God.
That's a crucial point. The UK and Ireland are bringing in mega farms. You've got about 1,000 mega farms in the UK, aka CAFOs, and so most of them are poultry, chicken, duck, turkey, but also cattle and lamb. There'll be a lot of at least grain fish, because grass is still a cheap calorie for us to put out with all the rain and sun that we get. But the thing is, that is a question for if people are wondering. Tripe is where they house bacteria, and how that cow is reared is important. And so, as ever, if the best quality you look at, make sure the company you're buying your food from is doing its due diligence. Make sure it's clean, and it shouldn't smell bad. Okay, tripe smells bad, but it shouldn't smell like bad meat. And getting to know that company and whatnot is your number one protection from picking up some bogey meats. So yeah, anyway, we'll get Bren's tip after that, but I just wanted to highlight that.
And highlight, let's little clue here. Okay, not all ruminants produce cow pats. Okay, and it will be dependent upon why they're feeding them other stuff than fibrous grass, in order to try and boost bits of them that they want to market, rather than actually allowing them to graze.
Okay. So maybe we're not going to be talking about science. We're going to be talking about poo and
well, that's
fecal quality, but also we're going to be talking tripe, because we're going to be looking at how to source good tripe.
Yeah.
Okay,
Absolutely.
so let's do that over Patreon. Yeah,
sounds good,
guys. Look, thoughts with everybody. It's been great to see you all, and we will see you over on Patreon. If you want to know how to join us over there, all you need to do is go to patreon.com/RawPetMedics, and for the price of a cup of tea, coffee, any other beverage you can think of, you can maybe even one of these. This is really nice, by the way. And you can join us over on RawPetMedics for a little bit more live.
I'm just going to jump in there for 1 second, guys. Loz says, any effects of Bovaer on tripe? So in a nutshell, I bet there is, but I don't know.
Let's go to the other side.
We'll have a quick look before we go to Patreon.
Yeah.
So Loz, come and join us on the Patreon show. And we will look at that. I promise I'm going to do that in the couple of minutes we need to just swap over the carriages on this particular train.
Wonderful. See you later, guys.
All right,
see you guys.
Thanks, guys. See you later.